What?
Hold on.
Hayes Thorogood seems to have lost his $1 million.
So did Billy.
In 1989, Roseanne and The Cosby Show were fighting it out for Nielsen dominance. The Simpsons was about to change television forever. And somewhere in Hollywood, a producer named Dick Wolf was watching his sophisticated mystery series crash and burn on ABC. He had no idea that in just 7 months, he'd create Law and Order and become a billionaire. That's the thing about television flops. They're not just failures. They're snapshots of roads not taken, of careers about to change direction, of stars desperately trying to recapture past glory. And 1989, it was absolutely brutal for hour-long dramas. The 1988 Writers Guild strike had disrupted everything. Cable was fragmenting audiences. Fox was expanding. And even Oscar nominees and Emmy winners couldn't save shows that felt like yesterday's news. Today, we're diving into 10 forgotten TV dramas from 1989 that crashed and burned spectacularly. Shows starring some of the biggest names in Hollywood that you've probably never heard of. We've got Burt Reynolds living on a houseboat, Lindsay Wagner running a zoo, the guy from The Greatest American Hero trying to save Congress, and a nursing drama so controversial that the American Nurses Association launched a nationwide protest campaign. If you're into television history and the strange stories behind shows that time forgot, hit that subscribe button. Number 10, Wolf. We're starting with Jack Scalia in Wolf. It premiered on CBS in September of 1989. Scalia played Tony Wolf, a San Francisco cop who gets framed on drug charges. He becomes a private investigator, working for the very attorney who got him fired. Now here's what made Wolf noteworthy. And honestly, kinda sad. The Buffalo News ran a preview of the premiere with this headline: Jack Scalia packs Wolf with experiences from his own past. After several series failures, Jack Scalia is crying wolf. Because this wasn't just another show for Scalia. This was his 5th consecutive flop of the decade. He'd already crashed with The Devlin Connection in 1982, Hollywood Beat in 1985, and other short-lived series. The thing is, Scalia had an incredible backstory. He was the #1 draft pick for the Montreal Expos back in 1971, a legitimate professional baseball prospect. Then, a shoulder injury ended his career. He reinvented himself as a major model for Armani, Jordache, and Eminence, then transitioned to acting. By 1989, he was openly discussing his recovery from drug and alcohol addiction in press interviews. That lent real authenticity to his role as a disgraced cop. CBS gave Wolf a special 2-hour premiere. They brought in guest stars like Lou Ferrigno and Chuck Connors. None of it mattered. The show ranked number 87 in weekly ratings when it was reordered mid-season. CBS burned off the remaining episodes through June of 1990. The co-creator, David E. Peckinpah, was the nephew of legendary director Sam Peckinpah. And even that Hollywood pedigree couldn't save Wolf from becoming Jack Scalia's 5th failure in a row. Number 9, Top of the Hill. At number 9, we have Top of the Hill, a show that reunited two people who had genuine TV magic together, and still couldn't make it work. William Katt, star of the beloved series The Greatest American Hero, teamed up again with that show's creator, the prolific Stephen J. Cannell. The premise was actually kind of interesting. Katt played a 36-year-old surfer who gets elected to fill his ailing father's congressional seat, an idealistic young outsider challenging Washington corruption. But here's where CBS made a fatal mistake. They scheduled this earnest political drama at Thursday, 9 p.m., directly against NBC's legendary Thursday lineup. Cheers finished number 3 for the entire season. Dear John came in at number 17. The premiere ranked number 80 out of all network shows. TV Guide listed Top of the Hill among, quote, new shows expected to face early cancellations, end quote, by mid-October. CBS pulled the plug after just 10 episodes aired. 3 episodes never made it to broadcast. For William Katt, this was supposed to be his big comeback. He had left a lucrative run of Perry Mason TV movies. 9 films alongside his mother, Barbara Hale, all for this role. The show tackled issues like adoptee rights, labor union corruption, and military procurement, earnest topics that simply couldn't compete with Cheers and its barroom wit. Sometimes the right show meets the wrong time slot, and that's the end of it. Number 8. Peaceable Kingdom. Lindsay Wagner won an Emmy for The Bionic Woman. She was a genuine television icon. In September of 1989, she tried to recapture that magic with Peaceable Kingdom.
Well, Orang's are on the endangered list, Jed. I don't want to get any trouble here.
He says it's from a private collection. It's got papers and everything.
A family drama about a recently widowed woman who becomes managing director of the Los Angeles County Zoo. CBS paired her with Tom Wopat from Dukes of Hazzard. He played her brother, the zoo's veterinarian. They filmed extensively at both the San Diego Zoo and LA Zoo. Wagner even had a personal connection to the setting. During location visits, she said, quote, "I spent a great deal of time here as a child. I grew up in this park, on that merry-go-round," end quote. The show lasted exactly 7 episodes. CBS scheduled it Wednesday at 8 p.m. against NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, which finished number 11 for the season with an 18.16 rating, and against ABC's Growing Pains at number 12. TV Guide's Monica Collins listed Peaceable Kingdom among, quote, shows in danger, end quote, within weeks of its premiere. Critics dismissed it as, quote, cute and cuddly, end quote. That was a death sentence against true crime and teen comedy competition. Here's an interesting footnote. One of the cast members was Conchata Ferrell. She would later find fame as Berta on 2.5 Men. And Tom Wopat eventually earned a Tony nomination for Annie Get Your Gun in 1999. For Lindsay Wagner, though, this was her second consecutive series failure. The first was Jessie in 1984. It confirmed what the industry was already suspecting. Her future lay in TV movies rather than weekly series. Those 5 unaired episodes, they didn't see the light of day until syndication in 1995. Number 7. Hardball. You know what Hardball had going for it? Eddie Money performed the theme song. It was called Roll It Over.
Never take a holiday, didn't need it anyway. Honey, that's the way it goes.
And it was never released on any Eddie Money album. That tells you everything you need to know about how this show was remembered. NBC wanted their own version of Lethal Weapon on television. They cast John Ashton from Beverly Hills Cop as Charlie C.B. Battles, a 45-year-old veteran cop facing desk duty. They paired him with Richard Tyson as Joe Kazarowski, a long-haired, Harley-riding hotshot. The Battles character was reportedly patterned after Pete Rose. The show premiered in September of 1989 on Friday nights. Things got rocky fast. NBC actually pulled Hardball after just 8 episodes in December. They called it, quote, creative adjustments, end quote. They replaced it temporarily with True Blue, ordered 5 additional episodes, and moved the series from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. when it returned in April of 1990. That's the kind of desperate time slot shuffling that signals a show circling the drain. But here's why Hardball deserves a spot on this list. Look at who appeared in single episodes before they became famous. Johnny Galecki. Yes, Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. He appeared in 1 episode. Anthony LaPaglia showed up. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, too. These were actors on the cusp of much bigger things, passing through a show that was already dying. A retrospective review from Mystery Files summed it up. Quote, based on this pilot episode, I kind of wonder how it lasted a full season, more or less. The story itself isn't all that new either. Not really better than average. End quote. 18 episodes. An Eddie Money theme song nobody remembers. And a bunch of future stars who probably don't list this one on their highlight reels. Number 6. Snoops, Tim Reid, and his real-life wife, Daphne Maxwell Reid, starred in Snoops. He played Chance Dennis, a Georgetown criminology professor. She played Mickey Dennis, the head of protocol for the State Department. Together, they solved crimes in the tradition of the Thin Man. On paper, this should have worked. Tim Reid had just come off Frank's Place. That show won 3 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Writing. Rolling Stone would later rank Frank's Place number 99 on their list of best sitcoms ever. TV Guide named it number 3 on 60 Shows Canceled Too Soon in 2013. And here's the thing. Snoops only existed because of fan outrage over Frank's Place getting canceled. Viewers flooded CBS with letters. Though they couldn't save Frank's Place, that response eventually prompted the network to greenlight Snoops. But the goodwill wasn't enough. CBS put the show on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Snoops tied for number 78 in weekly rankings. The Deseret News called it one of, quote, the week's big losers, end quote. There's actually a dark backstory here. According to a later revelation from Walter Cronkite to Tim Reid, Frank's Place was actually canceled because CBS CEO Lawrence Tish was personally offended by the final episode. It was called The King of Wall Street. Snoops never escaped that institutional baggage. The show ran 13 episodes before CBS pulled the plug in July of 1990. Another sophisticated concept that couldn't crack Friday nights. Number 5. Mancuso, FBI. Here's a genuinely strange piece of television history. Robert Loggia earned an Emmy nomination for a show that basically nobody watched. Loggia played Special Agent Nick Mancuso, an FBI agent with, and this is from the original press materials, quote, a passionate love affair with the United States Constitution, end quote. He fights corruption within his own government. The show was a spin-off from a 1988 miniseries called Favorite Son. That miniseries had actually drawn excellent ratings. Part 1 got 21.5 million viewers. Part 3 pulled 22.3 million. It beat Monday Night Football. So NBC had reason to be optimistic, and Loggia was at the peak of his career. He'd been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Jagged Edge in 1985. He'd won the Saturn Award for Big in 1988. He'd appeared in Scarface, Prizzi's Honor, and An Officer and a Gentleman. But 20 episodes later, Mancuso FBI was canceled. The show couldn't break through on Friday nights, despite Loggia's star power and the successful miniseries origin. And yet, here's the strange part. Loggia earned a Primetime Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series in 1990, his first such nomination. For a canceled show. It remains one of those rare cases where awards voters recognized quality that audiences completely ignored. The original character was apparently even harder to like. Producers noted they had to, quote, tone him down, end quote. In the book, Mancuso was, quote, much more unlikable, end quote. Maybe audiences in 1989 just weren't ready for a crusty, grouchy FBI agent who loved the Constitution too much. Number 4. Island Son. Richard Chamberlain was called the king of the miniseries, for good reason. Shogun, The Thornbirds, The Man in the Iron Mask. He'd conquered long-form television. In 1989, he returned to weekly TV for the first time since Dr. Kildare ended in 1966. That's a 25-year gap. He played Dr. Daniel Kulani, an internist returning to his Hawaiian hometown to practice medicine while reconnecting with his adoptive family. The show was essentially a personal project. Executive producer Martin Rabbit was Chamberlain's longtime partner. They'd been together since 1977, and they filmed entirely on Oahu, in their adopted home state. One young cast member, Ariana Richards, would later star as Lex in Jurassic Park. CBS gave the show every chance. They shuffled it from Saturday 10 p.m. to Tuesday 10 p.m., then Thursday 9 p.m. Nothing helped. Island Sun averaged approximately an 8.6 rating, around 8 to 9 million households. It ranked around number 75 among all network programs. Critics identified the problems. They called Dr. Kulani an, quote, implausibly perfect super doctor who delivered preachy lectures on ethics and Hawaiian culture, often at the expense of narrative depth, end quote. The show relied on, quote, the formulaic tropes and uneven execution, end quote, and it was competing against ABC's 30-something. One contemporary critic noted that show, quote, had an almost unimaginable amount of buzz going for it at the time, end quote. Here's a historical footnote. During the show's run in December of 1989, French magazine Nu Deux outed Chamberlain as gay. He wouldn't publicly confirm this until his 2003 memoir, Shattered Love. Chamberlain passed away in March of 2025 in Waimanalo, Hawaii. Rabbit was listed as his only immediate survivor. Island Sun was supposed to be a triumphant homecoming. Instead, it lasted 18 episodes and reminded everyone why some actors work better in limited doses. 3. Christine Cromwell. This one is historically significant for reasons that had nothing to do with the show itself. Jaclyn Smith, the only original Angel to last all 5 seasons of Charlie's Angels. She played Christine Cromwell, a San Francisco financial advisor and Harvard Law valedictorian investigating big money crimes. The show ran as part of ABC's Saturday Mystery Movie rotation. It produced 4 two-hour movies. The creator and executive producer was Dick Wolf. Let me say that again. Dick Wolf, the man who would build one of television's longest-running franchises. He watched Christine Cromwell get canceled in February of 1990. Critics weren't kind. Mark Dawidziak from Knight Ridder praised the production values. He said the program went from fun in the first hour to being a dud in its conclusion. Howard Rosenberg at the Los Angeles Times found the premiere, quote, humdrum, end quote. He said the narrative, quote, meandered and failed to cohere logically, end quote. He actually suggested viewers keep a book handy during viewing. The entire ABC Mystery Movie Wheel ranked number 83. It had a 9.57 rating. The wheel rotated between Columbo, Kojak, B.L. Stryker, Gideon Oliver, and Christine Cromwell. ABC canceled all entries except Columbo in May of 1990. Just 7 months after Christine Cromwell's cancellation, Law & Order premiered on NBC, September 13th, 1990. It ran for 20 seasons. It spawned multiple spin-offs. It made Dick Wolf a billionaire. The supporting cast of Christine Cromwell included Ralph Bellamy and Celeste Holm. Guest appearances by Dennis Franz, James Cromwell, John Delancey, that's Q from Star Trek, and Theodore Bikel. But none of that star power could save what was essentially Dick Wolf's last failure before his greatest success. Number 2. B.L. Stryker. Burt Reynolds was once the number 1 box office star in America. From 1978 to 1982, nobody was bigger. Then came Stroker Ace, Stick, Heat, Malone, Rent-A-Cop, flop after flop. He shattered his jaw filming City Heat in 1984. He faced unfounded AIDS rumors due to dramatic weight loss. It was actually caused by temporomandibular joint disorder. By 1989, he needed a win. So he came home to Florida. B.L. Stryker cast Reynolds as Buddy Lee Stryker, a Vietnam vet and retired New Orleans detective. He lived on what reviewers called, quote, a marvelously rococo houseboat, complete with a spiral staircase, end quote. In Palm Beach. Tom Selleck co-executive produced, a guy who knew a thing or two about mustached Vietnam vets/detectives. Episodes were written by acclaimed crime novelists Robert B. Parker and Joe Gores. Reynolds specifically chose television for the 6 months off and considerable creative control. And because it would be shot in Florida, near Jupiter, that's where his father had been police chief. The guest star roster was absurd. Rita Moreno, Ricardo Montalban, Dom DeLuise, Cicely Tyson, Ned Beatty, Maureen Stapleton, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Abe Vigoda, and a young Julianne Moore in an early career role. The Burt Reynolds Institute for Film and Theater calculated that the series generated $48 million for Florida's Palm Beach County, more than any other movie or TV filmed production. But here's the story that makes B.L. Stryker unforgettable. A 15-year-old Neil Patrick Harris appeared in an episode called Blues for Booter. Years later, in his memoir Choose Your Own Autobiography, Harris revealed something remarkable. A friendly kiss from Reynolds on set was his, quote, aha moment, end quote, when he realized he was gay. He wrote, quote, as a joke at the end of one take, Burt leans over and kisses you square on the mouth. It makes you uncomfortable, and it will ultimately turn out gay, end quote. The Orlando Sentinel's premiere review captured the show perfectly. Quote, ABC signed Burt Reynolds for a new series before it had a script. By the looks of B.L. Stryker, it still doesn't have one. But because it does have the ever-engaging Reynolds, who looks fit and tanned and clam-happy to be home, Stryker is a diverting, if not memorable, 2 hours, end quote, 12 two-hour movies over 2 seasons. Then, ABC canceled the entire mystery movie wheel. But here's the thing about Reynolds. He bounced back immediately. He moved straight to Evening Shade, won an Emmy Award, lasted 98 episodes. Boogie Nights in 1997 brought an Oscar nomination and completed his comeback. Sometimes a flop is just a pit stop on the way to redemption. Number 1. Nightingales. And at number 1, we have the most controversial cancellation of 1989, a show that sparked a nationwide protest campaign, caused sponsors to flee in terror, and proved that you can have Aaron Spelling's name on your project and still crash in flames. Nightingales premiered on NBC in January of 1989. It was a drama about student nurses living off campus. Suzanne Plachette starred as their supervisor. The young cast included Chelsea Field, Christy Swanson, who would later star as the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Susan Walters, and Roxanne Dawson. Dawson became Lieutenant B'Elanna Torres on Star Trek Voyager. She's now a prolific TV director, working on shows like The Mandalorian and Foundation. So what went wrong? Well, according to Ken Oletta's book, Three Blind Mice, Aaron Spelling's original pitch was, and I'm quoting here, quote, student nurses sharing a house in California and the air conditioning doesn't work, end quote. That pretty much tells you everything. The American Nurses Association watched this show and launched a letter-writing campaign. They accused it of portraying nurses as, quote, little sex kittens, end quote. A Chicago Tribune review noted the students, quote, don't spend much time studying, but do hang around in their underwear a lot, end quote. ANA spokeswoman Carol Grimaldi demanded, quote, why don't they just go ahead and do a show about lingerie models instead, end quote. One nursing instructor told reporters, quote, we do not want this type of image on TV. You're reducing nurses to a bunch of sluts, end quote. The Associated Press reported the series was, quote, criticized for demeaning the nursing profession in particular and women generally by portraying 5 student nurses as lusty bimbos, end quote. And then came the money. The Pew Charitable Trusts gave $800,000 to nurses to help fight negative media depictions. Sponsors started withdrawing advertising. The protest was working. In a desperate final attempt to save the show, Suzanne Plachette publicly apologized. She apologized for the emphasis on doctor-chasing airheads. She met with nurses to pledge reforms. NBC canceled the show 8 days later. 13 episodes, a national controversy, an advertiser exodus, and proof that even Aaron Spelling couldn't protect a show from organized professional opposition. Conclusion. So there you have it. 10 forgotten TV dramas from 1989 that crashed and burned. Despite having Oscar nominees, Emmy winners, and some of the most recognizable names in Hollywood. What's remarkable looking back is how many of these failures were actually stepping stones. Dick Wolf went from Christine Cromwell to creating Law and Order. Burt Reynolds went from B.L. Stryker to winning an Emmy for Evening Shade. Roxanne Dawson went from Nightingales to Star Trek to directing The Mandalorian. The 1989 to 90 season was a transition point in television history. The Simpsons debuted that December. Twin Peaks premiered in April of 1990. The old formulas weren't working anymore. The medical dramas, the detective shows, the star vehicles built around fading movie names. Audiences wanted something new, something they couldn't get from familiar faces in familiar situations. These 10 shows represent the dying gasps of an older television paradigm. They had big budgets, famous stars, proven producers. What they didn't have was the ability to compete in a rapidly changing landscape. Sitcoms dominated the ratings. Cable was stealing viewers. And the rules of what made a hit were being rewritten in real time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into television history, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next video. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you actually remember any of these shows? Did your parents watch Burt Reynolds on his houseboat? Did anyone out there see Nightingales before the nurses shut it down? Until next time, remember this. In television, today's flop might just be tomorrow's stepping stone to something legendary. Dick Wolf can tell you all about it.